Wow, that escalated really quickly. Already getting into the war against the Zobel Empire, but yeah, that's my thoughts on episode 7 of the Idaten Deities Know Only Peace. So let's jump into it. So yeah, starting out this episode, a lot of focus around the religious state of Cerebel. We kind of find out why it is a religious state to begin with, and that's mainly focused around the idea that apparently a long time ago, back in the old guard, ran in the old Idetens, at some point they were a group that was mainly focused on hiding underground in a shelter. And at some point when they emerged from it, they had nothing but landslides and terrible land. And at some point, thankfully for them, Prontea showed up and kind of molded the landscape in order to be much more fruitful. A lot of water coming through, vegetation and everything. It has Paula kind of pointing out the idea that it was probably just more him fixing Rin's terrible job. But yeah, so essentially him kind of helping fix the land essentially made him into a deity to these people. So they decide from that on point. He's pretty much like, there you go, do whatever you want with it. Don't just turn into a holy land. Just, build whatever you want later. This kind of turns them into essentially seeing him as this deity. But not only that, but as usual with corrupted churches, more focus on the idea of, well, let's use this religion to essentially control the people. And after kind of getting this little bit of a backstory given to Paula, because she doesn't really know what the heck's going on, Yeasley kind of lets them explain the situation. That's when Yeasley kind of comes to them and says, they're like, what are you here for? What exactly is your reason here? So when Yeasley kind of tells them, look, we're about to go take out the Zobel Empire, and we want you to play nice with your neighboring countries. Your nation and Hontanea is going to basically help the Zobel Empire rebuild. It's going to look like they had a coup de grace, and these new generals are going to take over, and you're going to help them rebuild, and you're all going to play nicely. And they're like, no, we can't play nice with them. And that kind of makes Yeasley snap a little bit, and he's like, you've been using your religion thing to pretty much manipulate people and make a lot of money, which is perfectly fine with me. Which is one of those things of like, you do realize having these, and this is like a comment to the writer, it's like, you do realize having these Idetens note that something is bad, but then say that they don't see it the same way they do that as bad, thus acknowledges the fact that Yeasley does see this as bad. But anyways, he does see this manipulation as bad, but they're not bothered by it. What they're bothered by is them causing problems worldwide. And so he wants them to play nicely, and if they don't... So yeah, basically he threatens them a little bit, so the guys are like, yeah, okay, well, we won't do that, but we're still going... He basically gave them an okay to continue what they're doing, which is to manipulate the people with religion and make a lot of money. So that's what they're going to do. Now, the second of this episode is really focused on Miku, as obviously similar to Brandy, has decided to take action to essentially get the heck out of there. She is observed enough to know that these Idetens are essentially one entity, so she's acknowledging the idea that whatever they create, whatever part of them is one entity, and if something breaks off, it deteriorates, so that thus means that they are one object, they're one unit. Their glasses, their clothes, everything is one unit, and no separate part is necessary or needed, as long as that one unit stays kind of together. So it also seems like she probably at that point acknowledged further threat of more Idetens, possibly, because it's that point which, even though Obama's like, well, that's good to know, maybe we can still find a weakness, it doesn't seem like she's finding a weakness. So she takes the opportunity to go see Umeyo, and essentially gets Umeyo and another nurse that was at this particular birthing location to flee together down underground through these tunnels that Brandy made and get the heck out of there. She knew that they were on the way. And this is something that is technically acknowledged by the fact that when Yeasley finally goes back to Prontea and gets Hayato, sees that Hayato is strong enough, essentially. They don't have much time to have to wait, so they're going to leave at that point to go see Rin and start their attack on the Zobel Empire. And he's a little bit fearful that Miku's going to figure this out, but she's already figured out she's out of there. So they all together race off to the Zobel Empire, and yeah, like I said, it escalated really quickly. It's time. They pretty much section off the entire area and start purging of all the demons. Now, this is one of those moments where I'm like, okay, I guess they are technically observing where people are leaving. They kind of have Pescolette get on there and say, everybody please flee out this area, and they're kind of observing as they leave. But yeah, it's pretty much an all-out demon slaying fest happening. So yeah, they did finally acknowledge technically what Yeasley said to Hayato before he left to the Cerebel Kingdom, and that was the fact that he thinks that, similar to Paula, he should focus on lowering his weight mass as he's moving so he can go quicker, but also then just before connecting to raise up his mass. So again, it's kind of playing off that aspect of controlling your designated weight in order to create damage or reduce it to increase speed. I got a kick out of it because when they, like, one of the first demons they run into, like, just jumps up there and it has like the whole introduction title thing pop up in front of the screen and literally just done. It's like you have this whole aspect of acknowledging who they are, and it's just, no, that was it. There's just one attack from Ran and he's done. And we finally had finally Gil is freed. The nun is finally freed. Finally Hayato discovers the prison that she's been keeping in and sets them free, and he's like, who are you? Are you a god? And he's like, that's when Takashita shows up and is like, no, he's not quite the one that you're praying to. But yeah, right now it seems like we have, again, Miku and Umeo is fleeing through the underground passage. It seems like they made it because they got past the spot where Prontia has kind of separated the land. At the same time, you have Rin is currently fighting a bunch of basic puppet bodies that are all being controlled by Brandy. Hayato is being confronted by Takeshita, and it seems like Yeasley, along with Paula and Corey, are kind of off the side observing who's leaving currently. So they also technically had Piscatale, but when they were apparently discussing their plans, she specifically pointed out several people that they should focus on saving in order to rebuild the nation. One being Barcode, one being, I think she mentioned Barcode. One being a prime minister, one being Miku, and I think she mentioned Barcode. But that was like the focus ones they wanted to technically help to, for some purpose. I'm not sure exactly why they'd want to keep. Again, I guess Miku and Barcode are technically not that dangerous, so I guess using their knowledge and their observation would be a good thing. I guess technically easily being able to surgically adjust them, it wouldn't really be too much of an issue. But yeah, it was interesting because they acknowledge the fact that Brian had already sent off her children, but Miku's like checking in on Umeo, like, you know, do you have any currently in incubation? And she's like, yeah, I got 2 in here, 2 boys. And she's like, good. As soon as they get older, we can use them to repopulate the world. And there's this other girl like, why would you want to do that? They're babies right now. And she's like, what, you don't like Shotacons? She's like, well, I don't have a problem with it. So yeah, I guess at this point we can pretty much acknowledge that the Edens did a very terrible job of, I guess, quarantining the Zobel Empire, because we've gotten literally at this point, 6 of Brandy, 3 of Brandy's kids, 3 people with Brandy's kids. So that's 6 total. Then you have Miku, 2 others, and then 2 babies. So we did a terrible job. That's like 11 people got out of there before they managed to attack. So yeah, the demons aren't going anywhere at this point. But yeah, that's my thoughts on episode 7 of the Idaten Deities No Only Peace. Hope you guys enjoyed my impressions. If you did, leave a like down below, comment, let me know what you thought of the episode. Subscribe if you haven't already. Share this video if you can. Support us on Patreon if you can. And y'all take care.